Hello everyone, so Brian P here. I'm with a senior software engineer. His name is Abdel. Yeah, he can introduce himself.
Yeah, so my name is Abdel. I was working with that really good guy, actually in the same company in Dubai here. So it's been now 3 years I'm working in Dubai as a senior backend software engineer, and before that I was studying and working in France, because actually I'm from France. So yeah, that's all.
So our main focus will be on backend development, since the senior software engineer focusing on the backend side of stuff, and it will be just to demystify and make you guys to be aware of being a backend engineer. Okay, so my first question is how did you become a backend engineer? Yeah.
So actually when I was young, I was kind of a guy that was always staying at home and gaming. Playing PlayStation, playing gaming computer actually. Yeah. So at some point, at the beginning I was not kind of geek that was coding since I have 10 years old, to be honest. But perhaps at some point I was a bit interested about actually how actually some guys can make such good games actually. So I tried to understand a bit how it works, like checking just basics of programming. I was quite interested, but I didn't actually have done more. I didn't code anything. So at some point, I had to choose actually which specialty to choose in the university, and I had a friend, one of my really good friends actually, who advised me actually to switch to computer science. Told me because you are a gamer and like it, and you will like to learn how to build games. So it was kind of my entry point. So I accepted to check, and after some couple of weeks I understood directly that it was actually the best choice in my life actually. Because I think most of the gamers like actually software engineering at some point, like computer science. It's like a good combination. So yeah, I have done a 5-year study. I got my master's degree in French in Superinfo, which is a good school in Paris. And then I had the opportunity to work with really good companies, doing mostly backend, and now I am here in Dubai. So that's how I came to it. It's kind of destiny and stuff like that.
Okay, that's really good. So what is really like the job description of a backend engineer? What does a backend engineer do?
Okay, so in the first time I explain it in a simple way actually.
Yeah.
So actually to me, a backend engineer actually should be able to write code that will solve a business problem actually. So actually you need to solve problem. This is the best way to explain it, and the simple way to explain it. Then of course you have multiple kind of facets of being actually a backend engineer. So you have, first stuff is like the coding part. You need to know actually algorithm and data structure, which is something really important. Because actually with two skills actually you will be able to actually solve most of the algorithmic problems.
Yeah.
And also there is another part which is kind of as soon as you are a backend, you are mostly working on the server side actually. So you need to understand how a server works, perhaps how even basically how an operating system works, and network stuff, like even if it's just basic stuff, but you need to understand, because at some point when you will become a senior, perhaps we will talk about that later, you will need to of course work on system design stuff, and you will need to make sure to implement the good component that will interact together, and actually will have to work on such stuff. So actually I would say solving problem using code actually, and at some point you will you can be sure 100% that at some point you will be also responsible for stuff like architecture. So you need also to understand everything related to networking, everything related to interaction between components, etc.
Okay, that's interesting. So based on you, what really made you to choose because in software engineering there is majorly backend and front end.
Okay.
Yeah, and you chose to focus on backend. What was your main reason?
Yeah, so like I said, I was a gaming guy. So I don't have a really specific explanation, but I don't know why. Since the beginning, when I started my engineering school, I was way more interested and curious about how the data processing was working, instead of how to make a good UI. Yeah. If I send to you my project of my first year of engineering, you will see a really ugly UI with a good working game, because we're doing a lot of game in my project. So.
Yeah.
So actually, I don't know. I was like that. I was really passionate about actually like everything related to servers, how to handle web requests and stuff like that. But not too much about UI. So it's just kind of the way I am actually.
Ah, okay, that's really interesting. So another question is, since you're a backend, you tend to use backend languages. So like, which programming languages and frameworks have you used before?
Yeah.
Both in the company or personal projects, and why did you choose these languages and frameworks?
Okay. So when I was working, I used to work in France, and what I was using was PHP and Symfony at the beginning of my career. Why? So it's like a career path actually, because in France, Symfony is from France, you probably already know, which is one of the biggest PHP web framework, which is a lot which is like mostly totally inspired from Java frameworks like Spring. So this is like basic stuff. You have a dependency injection. We have a lot of components that work together. So actually, PHP and Symfony, it was really great experience to work with that, because PHP is becoming these days actually more and more mature. It's like looking a lot like Java. Also, Symfony framework are like really crazy at some point. Like really, I think you will not find a lot of difference between the feature that you have on Spring. Of course, you will find some, but between Spring and, for example, Symfony. So I had the chance to work with that. It gave me a lot of basis on OOP, which is really important to have. On design pattern also, because when you work with OOP language, like at some point, if you want maintainable code, it's like really good with design pattern. So it was actually the first language and framework I used, and I was really happy with that. At some point, I tend to work on some personal projects, so I try to use a lot, as much as technology as I can. The first one that I used in my home, let's say, it was Python. Of course, Python also is a really good language, different than PHP, but still really good. Like I felt it was really simple to learn it actually, and also there is a crazy ecosystem. And currently, in my current company, I am working with Golang mainly, and also a lot of still PHP and Symfony, because we are switching to microservices, and most of our microservices are written in Golang. So actually, Golang is really good. It's pretty different from PHP or Java and stuff like that. Actually, Golang is like a compile language, firstly, so you will have a lot of performance stuff to be proud of. And also, like this is a really, to me, it's a really simple language. It's straightforward. It's like actually they want you to use more composition over inheritance, because if you do OOP, at some point you can find some project when you have a lot of inheritance, and it can be a mess to have. And in Golang you have that, and also for stuff like concurrency and parallelism. Like concurrency is not mandatory to be also with parallelism, but you can have concurrency with the parallelism. But actually, for everything related to concurrency and parallelism, Golang is crazy, because it gave you really easy to use tools. And yeah, it's not so easy to do concurrency in PHP than in Golang, because PHP is a monothreaded language. So yeah, it's like, to me, each language have its own capabilities, and like I don't like too much when people say like that language is bad. I don't feel it's a good way to go. It's like each language have its own use cases. Okay. So yeah, that's why I advise to the guys that are doing software engineering to try to not get stuck into one language actually, because you are missing a lot of stuff in order to make to understand more actually what is some nice stuff about it.
Okay. So, thank you. That's really good, and tons of info. So right now I still see for the backend role, some companies still, like most of the Fortune 500 companies, still advertise for a software engineer, but then they still need you to know Java and Spring Boot framework. So it seems they still use Java in their backend. Why is this so when we have like new languages, Golang, Python and stuff?
Of course, Java is still a good language, but if you go, for example, 10 years or 20 years back, I think the more mature OOP language was Java, sure. And also it has the best ecosystem at some point with already mature framework, like you say, with Spring and stuff like that. So I think at some point they had alternative, but not so much actually, because Java was like kind of performant. It had a good ecosystem, good OOP capabilities, so it was perhaps perfect for big tech companies. And also it's backed by Oracle, you know that. So actually, it's make everyone confident. Like So yeah, and nowadays you have a lot of alternative. Like I told you, like before, perhaps the focus was made on inheritance, and now you can see a lot of software engineers that are advocating the fact to switch to composition more, like composition over inheritance, they say. So with that, you can have a trend, and you have a new language, a lot of new language that came, which are like very straightforward, like perhaps Golang. So I think Java still have the market because it was the first really major language. But I guess in some couple of years, of course, you will still have a lot of Java, but like it will not be like you'll have also like a big share of the market that will be taken by other languages actually. Yeah. So I think that's why you have a lot of Java, because it was the first to be a major with a good ecosystem. To keep it simple.
Okay, so right now you've really grown in your career. You became you're a senior software engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really want to know like what makes the difference between a senior software engineer versus a junior software engineer.
Good question. So there's a couple of stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll start by the soft skill stuff firstly, and then we'll switch to the like technical stuff. So firstly, I think this is soft skills. Like if you're a junior, if you're just coming and doing your small task and it's kind of working, it's okay. Like everyone will be happy. If you're a senior, you cannot do that for sure, because actually people want you to communicate, to mentor also other people. So if you're a senior, you have a kind of responsibility to mentor. You have to feel actually when you have some team member that need some mentoring or some help. So people rely on you way more actually. So this is kind of soft skills. Also, you will need actually to present a lot of stuff to product teams and stuff like that. So you will need to interact. You will need to have a big soft skills capability actually. And on the tech side, let's say, like I said to you, it will not be possible to only do small tasks and to make your product to be happy. People will actually need you to also doing a lot of system design, which is actually really important. And so you probably know that already, but actually system design is about not only coding your feature, but also making sure to choose, for example, the good technology and the good system architecture in order to make it work in the good way. Like when I need to put my cache, which cache technology I need to use, why I need to use cache in that feature, how I need to use it, and stuff like that. So there is not only cache, but cache is a good example of actually one component. Actually, you need to understand how all the components of the ecosystem interact with each other. Like you cannot just, if you're a senior, you cannot just write your 10 lines of code and be happy with it actually. Perhaps in some companies it can be different, but in most of companies it will be like mandatory for a senior to take responsibilities on that actually.
Okay, that's good. So guys, it's system design, and we tend to assume on soft skills as geeks. It's a good skill to really have, you know.
It's really complicated. You're right to point it, because at least for me, I was a really shy guy before. But no, I'm not. I'm still shy, but still, no, I am okay to take responsibility and to be confident in company when I need to present stuff and stuff like that. But I know that it's really complicated for software engineers sometimes to have soft skills. But still, you have to work, like just repetition. Like you, perhaps if you have some meetups in your city, just go there. It will be complicated, but just force you to do it. And the first time it will be complicated, then it will be really easy. So just matter of repetition.
Okay, so the parting shot, like this is the final question. I did also ask Fabrice, the software engineering lead I interviewed. It's about an advice you can give to us, a self-taught coder, someone who is learning right now, or a fresh graduate, because it's actually the same, right? And Fabrice initially said about doing projects, improving on your skills. So what can you add on that?
So firstly, what you need to know is that we are lucky, because in software engineering and computer science, like a guy that learned how to code alone can be way better at some point than a guy that have done perhaps like software engineering school. So actually just put actually focus and time and motivation, and of course we'll be able to build stuff and to learn stuff. But one problem come with that is that when you are building stuff alone, it's good because you will learn technologies and you will learn how to build stuff from scratch, of course, but you will not have feedback on your work. And at least for me, in my experience, like if I just think about my career, like the best year that I had is when I had a lot of feedback from really good software engineers, and then you can grow. So it's something a bit more complicated to have a proof when you're working alone, but still there is some solution for that, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of the solutions is to work on an open source project, because like you guys know on GitHub you have a crazy amount of open source projects, and also in some really good open source projects you can have really good contributors. You can have contributors that are really good in their fields, perhaps some guys working in big tech company or not, even guys that just work alone on some specific subject, but guys that are really good and that you can learn from them actually. So just use that to perhaps not only work on some project alone, but also contribute to some open source project, opening some pull requests. At the beginning perhaps it will be a bit complicated, you will have a lot of feedbacks, but you need to go and to fix those feedbacks, and it will be better and better, and you will learn a lot actually by leveraging the community actually. I think this is a really important point to have.
Okay, so guys, you've heard contributing to open source projects so that you can get reviews from senior software engineers will really help you to grow. That's the additional gain here for the self-taught coders and fresh graduates. Yeah, I believe it was really great interacting with you, Abdel.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for this.
Thanks to you.
So, hey everyone, I'll put Abdel's LinkedIn profile, the link to it on the description, so that you can reach out to him if you have any question. Okay? Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's really nice. Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Bye.
See you.
See you guys.